anyone purchase any Dev Dan course. I like his YouTube content, but I somehow don't trust any product with this type of landing page. Yeah, I completely agree. With just the landing page, makes me feel like it's a scam. That landing page looks like ass. Wouldn't buy from someone who can't get it right with AI. Before selling an AI mastery course, maybe start by mastering your own landing page. Oof. And my personal favorite, just grift. Okay, now there are some positive comments in here from engineers that have taken the courses, but the feedback here is well taken. And I want to use this Reddit post as an opportunity to showcase a new emerging technology you can use to scale your agents. Let's talk about agent sandboxes. What are agent sandboxes? What's E2B? And how is this useful for scaling your impact with your agents? Let's first create actionables from the Reddit post. We need to turn this Reddit post into concrete prompts so our agents can resolve any issues. So the first thing we're going to do is boot up Cursor, and we're going to boot up two different Claude Code agents. I want Claude Sonnet there in YOLO mode and another Claude Sonnet. Our agent on the left is going to be our orchestrator agent, and we're going to run prime O-box. So this is going to prime our agent to be the orchestrator to kick off our agent sandboxes. Now on the right, we're going to set up prompts to turn the Reddit post into concrete high-level prompts for our front-end agents. I'll use my code snippet here, AGP. This is for agentic prompt that's going to create a great starting place for us. And our only variable here is going to be the Reddit post. And I just want to collect all the information from this page, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and copy here. Hopefully Reddit doesn't sue me for this. And we're just going to paste this here. And now we have all that information there, all right? So what's the purpose of this prompt? Based on this Reddit post, paragraph prompts, center the first prompt buttons, respond directly. Great, so we're gonna paste this into our second Claude Code instance there and get that fired off. That should give us 3 distinct prompts in total. We'll be able to take these and pass it into our agent sandbox orchestrator agent that's actually going to kick off the sandboxes. You can see here it has the command structure. It knows how to operate this tool. We ran this prompt here, prime O-box, and O-box stands for outbox agent. This is effectively the skill setup for this agent, okay? This could be a skill, this could be a sub-agent. We're keeping things simple, and here it's just a prompt. Run O-box, and I'm gonna go ahead and get a link to this code base. It's just a version of the front-end landing page that Reddit roasted. We're gonna make some improvements to it. We want our agents inside of their own sandboxes to make changes to this website and then host the URL back out. We're gonna do this at scale. This is gonna be really cool. Let's go ahead and grab the GitHub URL for this. Just going to copy this and then use this in the prompt. So that's the URL that the sandbox will clone. Let's go ahead and set the branch. We're going to call this landing page fixes from Reddit Sonnet model. And here's the cool part. I want 3 forks. Okay. And then finally the prompt. I'm just going to paste in our first prompt here, fix the spacing a little bit here, and bam. So I'm going to copy this, paste it into our agent. So this is going to use our outbox agentic coding tool. You can see the tool is running right there. We have the repository, we have the branch, we have the model, and we have the forks. So we're going to spin up 3 parallel agents working independently in their own code base. This is the value proposition of cloud sandboxes. This is going to be really cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like in the E2B dashboard. This is our AI sandbox tool. You can see here, if we refresh, we now have 3 sandboxes, 3 dedicated environments that each agent runs on its own. This is the value proposition of cloud sandboxes. These are dedicated environments that our agents own completely end to end. All right, so we use fork 3. So that exact same prompt is running 3 times. And I'll explain why we do that in just a moment. First, let's spin up some more sandboxes. We still have 2 more prompts to run. Create 2 more versions with the same settings, but update the branch for each prompt against these prompts. Copy this in and paste it. We'll let Claude Code handle this for us. It'll format everything and set up the formatting structure. So you can see here we have 2 new outbox CLI command calls. So for this prompt, we're running 3 versions, and for this prompt, we're running 3 versions. Take note of the scale, okay? Instead of prompting back and forth, right, in a single Claude Code agent, what we've done here is we've taught an agent how to run sandboxes. We now have 9 sandboxes, okay? So we search 22 here, or we got to search something more specific, node 22. E2B also supports templates, which is super, super powerful. You can basically set up packaging that you want installed in this specific sandbox. They're all running that version. What just happened here? What are agent sandboxes? Why is this important? This is a kind of slowly emerging trend. Right now, only Fortune 100 companies are using this technology. This is tooling that runs if you've used Manus, ChatGPT, Claude. When they start running code, guess what they're running? They're running isolated agent environments. They're running an agent sandbox. And what this does is it gives your agents an isolated sandbox to have full control over. I have my Mac Mini right here. I run agents on this device. It's very powerful. You can set up some really great workflows, but there's limits to having a single device, right? Even when you have Git work trees and you're running parallel Git work trees so that you can run individual agents inside of specific directories and then have each agent kind of set up that environment, right? That's great, but it is still a limitation. Why is that? What are we trying to accomplish here with agent sandboxes? There is something big missing from every single agentic coding setup right now. When you hop into the terminal, right, and you're prompting back and forth over and over in an individual agent, you're extremely limited. Your presence is very high, and what you can do is limited based on your single agent that you have running. Now, we talk about the agentic scaling framework all the time. You first start with a single agent. You then make your agent better. You learn to context engineer. You learn to agentic prompt engineer. Then you add more agents. And then eventually you get to custom agents. And then there's one final level. If you're at the edge, you start orchestrating all of your agents with an orchestrator agent, kind of like what we're doing here by teaching our agent how to run agent sandboxes. All right, there are different variants of the orchestrator agent, but the point here is that engineering is about a lot more than just writing code. You're doing research. You're doing reinforcement learning. You're setting up computer use agents. You're doing AI data analysis. You're planning. You're reviewing. You're experimenting, right? You're prototyping. You're testing, right? So many things happen, right? You know, as engineers, we glue together these large systems and put it together to create an experience for an end user, right? Engineering is about much more than just writing code. Agent sandboxes represent a natural evolution of agentic coding, right? First, we prompt back and forth. Then we set up multiple agents inside the loop, outside the loop, inside of applications, so on and so forth. But at some point, we need to give our agents more autonomy, more control, and the ability to act as we do in our own dedicated environments, right? On our laptop, on our computers, on our devices, right? They need their own agent sandbox. By the way, I'm not sponsored by E2B. They are just the best tool for this job right now, and that's what I try to focus on. All right, there are others like Modal. I'm going to link them all in the description for you. What I want to do here is showcase how powerful this can be. These are still running in the background, and what I want to do here is just kind of show you what these are doing, right? What just ran exactly. I'm going to grab this command here. I've been using this to test. All right, so this is the command that our agents are running. UV run, obox, GitHub URL, there's the branch, and here's the prompt. Update the index.html file. We're going to set the title to the fork and the branch. Install dependencies, boot the server, provide a public URL, haiku, and let's go ahead and set this to 4 forks. Okay, so we're going to have 4 versions run in parallel. Let me actually CD into the correct directory. This is going to be in the agent working sandbox. Here we go, sandbox workflow, and then we'll actually kick off this workflow, right? So 4 haiku agents working in parallel. We're just gonna update the index file and set the title. We'll see few more sandboxes kick up here, and you can see that these just got kicked up in the last minute here, right? These all got kicked off basically instantly. And some of our other sandboxes are likely going to be completing pretty soon here, right? And so what do agent sandboxes give us? It gives us 3 things: isolation, scale, and agency, all right? And by us, really it gives your agents these 3 things, all right? So isolation, it gives your agents dedicated environments that are safe, destroyable, they're ephemeral, you can spin them up, you can spin them down, just like your agents themselves. You really want to be thinking about your agents as deletable resources with a single purpose, right? You want focused agents accomplishing specific tasks, and when they're done, they're gone. This lets us bypass many context problems very, very quickly. All right, and you can see here, VS Code just opened with the logs summarizing the work done. All forks completed. All of our agents are finished. Each one of them has their own logs. So let's go ahead and open up logs. And you can see here, we're getting our logs in. Let's go ahead and open up the test titles. And here's the coolest part, right? We have an entire agent playback. We can see everything that's happened top to bottom. That's great. but this is what I want. So we can open up the individual forks. All right, so let's just go ahead and open all of these up. There's the public URL that our agents are creating for us, thanks to the sandbox. Here's what happened, right? So check this out. Just like we asked for, every single agent created in their own environment. They exposed the web application, right? You can see here we're on E2B.app, and here's fork 1, here's fork 2, fork 3, and fork 4, right? Just like we asked, 4 forks, and they only updated the title. You can see here our other agents are coming in as well. This is what's happening, right? We are scaling our compute to scale our impact. Now, imagine what you could do if you actually passed in useful prompts into these, right? Just like we did at the beginning. Let's go ahead and take a look at our actual code updates to make some improvements to the landing page as the Redditors have requested, all right? We have taught our orchestrator agent how to use this and where the logs, exactly where the logs will be. Review the logs, open, get up PRs, and preview URLs in Chrome for every link you find for the 9 agents you kicked off. We're going to have our orchestrator agent reveal all the information for us, right? We already set up great logging. This is an agentic process. So we have logs everywhere. Our agent can tap into anything that it needs to see to get the work done. All right. So our agent is opening up. Here's all the PRs on this code base, right? We now have a bunch of new PRs from each individual agent. There's fix 1, there's fix 3. There's transparent pricing 1, 2, 3, and here's our social proof badge 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to start getting the applications opened. All right, and so here we go. Our agent just opened up every new version for us. Okay, and so if we scroll down, we can see that we have a new pricing setup here, right? This is a specialized, specific version. You can see it's made some tweaks to the landing page here, right? And so this is just one version, right? If we go to the next version here, you can see that another agent made completely different tweaks here, right? It's got the pricing further up, explore 8 tactics. You can kind of see the other information below. So this version just moved the pricing up. We can just keep going on down the line, right? Here's another version where if we start scrolling, we can see a nice header here that pops up. And I assume, yep, when we click this, it's going to auto scroll to specific sections, right? So course content. And then of course we can just click right to pricing and the Redditors will be happy about this. We get right to the pricing right here, okay? We can even click to FAQ. We're on just the 3rd version, and just to mention it, like, why is this important? Who cares, right? We can now solve one problem many times with compute thanks to agent sandboxes. Okay. Once you configure your agents and teach them how to run and set up your code base at scale, you can just deploy them in their own environment and let them do whatever you need to do. And then you can access a pattern called best of n. Instead of just prompting back and forth in the loop here with a single agent, we just spun up 9 versions. To be clear, we spun up 3 versions, but we gave each version 3 attempts. Right? So we basically tripled the compute to solve a specific problem, right? We created a few prompt variants and then we just gave it 3 times the compute. We wanted 3 versions of each. And as you know, language models, agents, they're non-deterministic. So every time you run them, you're going to get something a little different. And we can see that right here in these first 3 versions. All right. Here's another version. You can see it kind of ignored the existing header here. So it missed this. But if we scroll down, you can see, it's made a couple tweaks. There's that dark overlay there again. It left a lot of this the same, but you can see here we have this new header. Let's check out another version. If we start scrolling here, kind of same deal, right? So a lot of these are just addressing that header. This actually looks a lot better, frankly, with this like auto showing up. The black text has got to go though. This is just misalignment in the prompt. It can't see the background, right? Another improvement we can make to this workflow, to our agents really, is to give them some better browser-based tools, right? So they can actually validate against this public URL and read and see their work, right? Here, not bad. Once again, of course, we can just click these, auto scroll, get started. It's going to take us right to pricing. Fantastic. And then next one, what does this look like? So what happened here? Okay, so we just put the pricing, transparent pricing, we moved it up front and we're talking about more of the guarantees here, a lot higher up in the scroll. All right, so that's good. Team mode, we can go to individual mode. Fantastic. The styling, kind of questionable, but that's fine. This is one of the great parts. Again, we're running a best of n pattern. Once you have access to more compute and you've taught an agent how to scale other agents, right? This is the orchestrator kind of showing up once again in a different shape and a different form. I'll link the previous video a couple weeks ago where we talked about the orchestrator agent. So here's another version where we have the pricing just a lot higher up. Bold pricing, free risk, lifetime access. And as one of the Redditors mentioned, let me just quickly address something here. Someone mentioned the refund. Yeah, so I have this refund policy, right? Battle Panda 100 called it out. If you don't like either one of these courses, right, principal AI coding or tactical agentic coding, you get a full refund before you start lesson 4. So it's all risk-free. This is why I love that grift comment so much. It literally couldn't be less grift. But anyway, the concerns were valid, right? You have to just kind of scroll all the way down to see the pricing. I get it. But here we have a solid solution to that, right? We have 9 versions of the application, and we actually have to be careful here because something is about to happen to these sandboxes. With every sandbox, they each have their own lifetime. These sandboxes are ephemeral, they're temporary, and we can actually look inside of the system prompt of our agent here. If we close all these files, inside of the system prompt, sandbox fork agent system prompt, you can see here, if we scroll to the top, you can see our variables, and we can just collapse everything so you can see this clean agentic prompt. In the variable section, we actually have a sandbox lifetime. All right, and this is 1800 seconds. This is going to be 30 minutes. Very soon here, our agents are going to start spinning down their environment, or rather the agent sandbox is going to start closing. All right, so we have to, quickly take a look here at the rest of the version, see which one we like. And then of course, we always have the PRs, right? Just to be super clear, every one of these versions created their own PR. So we have the code, it's here, our agents went off, they did work in their out loop agentic coding system, and then they're presenting the work back to us, of course, in a classic GitHub PR. We have just scaled our compute. Keep in mind how few prompts I actually wrote. I extracted information, and then we turned it into a prompt that our agents ran, and they operated on this for us, right? So we have very, very literally scaled our compute to scale our impact. All right, I just want to actually take a peep at some of these other versions to see if there's anything super interesting. Okay, we just moved the section up there a little bit more. And then I assume we just moved pricing up a little bit further here. Okay, yeah, so that's not interesting. Updated, that's not interesting. Okay, also not very interesting, right? So this is another great aspect of the best of N. You're just going to get complete duds, right? Some generations, when you just let your agent go off and do work, it's just going to be a version that you can just completely, very quickly dismiss. And so, we can get rid of, several of these versions right away. These just aren't what I was looking for. We're really looking for some of these earlier versions here with this great header with auto scrolling. So, now that I have this, again, we just threw agents at this to kind of generate the best of N, right? Multi-version solutioning with many agents. What I'll do after this, right? I'll take this, I'll review the PR, I'll make sure that it's responsive. I'll clean up some of this darker text, right? I'll hop in the loop a little bit. I'll pull this specific branch and then get to work on actually shipping it out, deploying it to production. So, shout out to Reddit for calling this out. And I'm going to go ahead and leave a comment on this. I'll just link back to this video to just kind of showcase some of the ideas in action that we talk about in both of these courses. So here we're using parallel compute. Yes, this does come with costs. Let's talk about some of the trade-offs of agent sandboxes, right? These are powerful, these are great, but you can see here, there obviously is a cost to this, right? I just spun up 13 agents running their own devices. Yes, you need to use your API key. Yes, it will cost you. This can't use your Claude Code Max or Pro subscription. It has to go through the API. Another trade-off here is that you do have to engineer your sandbox, right? So let's go ahead and just take a look at the application structure. Just like last week, we talked about CLI versus MCP versus skills. I have that exact same layering here minus the skills. So I have a CLI to manage the sandboxes, and then I wrapped that CLI in an MCP server. So anytime, anywhere we want to, we can go ahead and boot up a new Claude Code agent here and run MCP config and just run on this MCP. And then I can run something like this, right? I can get the ID of this sandbox, right? And this is cool. You can actually click into your sandbox and you can see everything that's going on here. This repository, so if we click into the repo, there's that entire code base set up, ready to go. It's live, it's running. And you can see here's the agent timeout, right? So there's the timeout of the sandbox. Turn thinking on, hit MCP, and you can see here's the E2B sandbox wrapper MCP server that I built here. ls, the root directory of this sandbox, and I'll prefix E2B sandbox MCP. Okay. And so we'll kick this off, and our agent is going to peer in to this sandbox with this MCP server, right? So there's that list files. It's going to run this path, depth 1, and it's going to give us files inside of this MCP server. Bam, there's that. We're at the root of that sandbox. Go here, right here's the actual repo, ls this directory here. There we go. There's the entire code base. All right, very cool. We've set up an MCP server that wraps the CLI, and the CLI has the key commands. If we just hop in here, go to commands, you can see all of the key elements that actually wrap the functionality. And here we are tapping into, let me just be super clear here, we are tapping into E2B. So if we go into modules and we go into something like files, you can see we're using E2B. This is the agent sandbox tooling. We're connecting to the sandbox, and then we're running specific sandbox SDK tooling like this, right? This is how you can, of course, compose different types of tools into CLIs, MCP, and of course, we can turn this into a skill if we want to, all right? So that's how that works. And then we have our sandbox agent workflow, which is running that O-box workflow that you saw. And so this is the actual high level that our agent was running, and this is what we ran our prompt into before, right? So this is exactly what this looks like. If we hit up here, we are running the O-box tooling, which is the sandbox workflow. And right now we only have one workflow. If you've taken tactical agentic coding, you know what this truly represents. It represents an ADW. Sandbox fork is the tooling we use to actually spin up all the environments, and there's all the flags for the command, and then it just kind of goes into the details, yada, yada, yada. Two important things to mention here. If we go into agents, we are of course using the Claude Code agent SDK. This is in fact a custom agent where we pass a prompt into, and then if we look for options, you can see all of our Claude Code options that we're setting up. We have allowed tools, disallowed tools, and the most important piece here is that if we go into our constants and search our allowed tools, you can see here is all the tools, right? The new MCP specific tools that we're building out to help our agent interact with this specific service. You can kind of get the idea of how this works, right? Init, sandbox, create, connect, execute, kill sandbox right there. And, speaking of, let's go ahead and check the timeout. A lot of our sandboxes, they have about 7 minutes left to live. Some of them have already started closing down. These sandboxes don't last forever, right? Just like your agent, they're ephemeral. They have a purpose. You spin them up, you get cloned, you do work, and then you finish, right? You delete them. This is the agent sandbox. And one last thing I want to share with you here, there are many important pieces to setting up agents. The most important are, of course, the core 4, context model, prompt, tools. We talk about this on the channel all the time. If we search for that system prompt here and open this up again, this is the engine that drives our sandbox agent. So this is an engineering agent that operates its own sandbox, right? Your sandbox is fully isolated environment with its own file system, tools, configuration, right? So everything here is detailed in the purpose. Once again, we have clean, clear prompt engineering. Context engineering is great, but if you can't prompt engineer, nothing else matters, right? It's going to be garbage in the whole time. This system prompt completely overrides, if we look here, right, the system prompt completely overrides the Claude Code system prompt. This is a full, true custom agent. It has its own tools, and it's specialized to do one thing extraordinarily well. So that's the agent sandbox. Sandboxes are starting to spin down now as we approach the 30-minute mark here. What are the next steps here? So after you have tooling like this, that is, rapidly deploying many versions, many solutions, this very quickly turns into a review constraint. How do you review all this? Planning and reviewing are the big areas of focus for engineering with agents, right? If you're doing this right, you're likely planning a lot or you're reviewing a lot of work. And you can see here we have a decent amount of review. Obviously, we can just come in, tick off all the ones that we don't want or don't care about, get rid of them, right? We can mark as closed and then just proceed from there. I am going to go through this and deploy a couple of these versions on tactical agentic coding and principled AI coding because I do like some of these versions. And I really like this version here, right? I think this is the best one. I'm going to update this button a little bit to match the theme a little bit better. But anyway, this was a simple example of showing off how you can use agent sandboxes. And to be completely clear, with UI, this is a little overkill for a problem like this, making some tweaks to a user interface, but still it showcases the point very well. Agent sandboxes give you compute at scale. It lets you very literally scale your compute to scale your impact. That's a huge theme we focus on this channel every single week, week after week. We know that engineering is about much more than just writing code. By giving your agents their own environment and their own tools, they can operate more autonomously, right? You can scale up what your agents can do. The agent is the best tool for the job of engineering. So how well can you use the best tool? This is the measure of our impact as engineers in the age of agents. Keep your eyes on this trend. Agent sandboxes are going to come up more and more and more. There's going to be a very, very powerful piece of AI tooling if you know how to use it and if you know how to leverage it. Right now, only a lot of big labs and engineers near the edge are using this, right, for reinforcement learning, for isolated, fast, one-off environments, data analytics, right? There are many, many use cases. It took me a while to understand why this was important, but once you see it, once it clicks, it really clicks. Again, I'm not sponsored by E2B or Claude Code or any of these tools. I'm an unbiased third party. I look for the best tool for the job of engineering, and then I share them with you when I have time. The agent is the best tool for engineering. And the best way to scale up the autonomy of your agent is by giving it its own dedicated agent environment like E2B. I'm going to deploy these changes on tactical agentic coding. If you're interested in pushing what you can do forward, check it out. I'm also going to share my agent sandbox code base with you here so that you can check this out. You'll be able to quickly spin up agents against specific code bases, spend some time understanding the code. There are layers here. This is not a simple piece of technology. There are some levels to this. But if you're using agents every day, it won't be hard for you to understand. Link for this code base will be in the description. Shout out to everyone who commented on the Reddit posts, all the haters, and everyone that shared some kind words about the course. Big shout out to everyone here. I'll drop a comment for this video after I edit and get this rendered on the Reddit post, and we'll let engineers like you and everyone here that's going to see this post on Reddit, you guys decide if I'm a grifter or not, all right? No matter what anyone says about your work, the great, the good, the bad, the ugly, stay focused and keep building.